I'm gonna be honest with you guys, and you know how much I try to be transparent. So, I have to let you know that I actually had no intention to watch this movie. I saw a Hulu original horror flick that was centered around Thanksgiving a few years ago, and honestly, I felt like I saw all that I needed to see when it came to Thanksgiving horror. I didn't realize until after the movie came out that it was directed by Eli Roth. I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again and again, you already know. I like the violence and I like the gore, and Eli Roth is behind Hostel, The Green Inferno, Cabin Fever, and a movie that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough, Clown. That's just a few of the movies he's done, but if you've seen any of his work and you're a fan, then you already know. As soon as I saw his name attached to this movie, I had to get tickets. Hi friends, welcome back, or just welcome if you're new here. I'm here as a friend to give you my spoiler-free thoughts on the latest movie I've watched in theaters or cozied up at home. If you're looking for my thoughts on a specific movie, DM me on Instagram, let me know on the podcast, or in the comment section on YouTube. Tune in for new episodes every Friday, and don't forget to follow the podcast, subscribe on YouTube, and follow me on Instagram, all the things everywhere, so you don't miss out on what I'm watching and what we're going to be talking about. I just think it's funny that I wasn't interested in this movie at all until I saw that Eli Roth was attached. To be fair to myself, like I said, I thought I saw all the Thanksgiving-themed horror flicks I needed to see. That Hulu movie that I was talking about a minute ago is called Pilgrim. I had to look it up because it was bothering me. My point is, I felt like I didn't need to see more. I feel like everything was really stacked against this movie because on top of my initial thoughts, I hadn't actually seen any marketing for this movie. I hadn't even seen a trailer until I was trying to convince my honey to come with me to see it. I knew it was some type of killer movie horror turkey day situation, but I wasn't ready for what we got. Let's get into today's episode on Thanksgiving. An axe-wielding maniac terrorizes residents of Plymouth, Massachusetts after a Black Friday riot ends in tragedy. Picking off victims one by one, the seemingly revenge killings soon become part of a larger sinister plan. I saw a TikTok comparing this movie to a Scream movie, and I'm kind of here for it. Scream does have that really strong, deep fan base and its status as a classic and an icon, but honestly, given some time, I think this movie can kind of get really close, and it's definitely going to be a holiday staple for me. Something I love in these types of movies is trying to figure out who the killer is while also dodging the red herrings. If you're not familiar with the term, according to Google's generative AI, a red herring is a literary device that misleads or distracts the audience from the truth. In cinema, a red herring is a false clue that leads the audience to a false conclusion. Not only is trying to spot the killer fun, but so is trying to figure out who's the red herring. Who is the movie trying to make us think is the killer when they're actually not? I think this movie did a fantastic job of that all around from start to finish. There are so many characters, and there are so many characters that have motivation and opportunity. You gotta be suspicious of everyone. Let's talk about violent consumerism and dehumanization. Not something I thought I would ever talk about on this channel, but here we are. I'm gonna keep telling you guys, I like the gore, I like the violence, but something that makes me uncomfortable is greed. In this context, how much it exceeds basic needs. On a real note, I just cannot stand crowding, pushing, and shoving. I went off on a little bit of a tangent there for a second, but the movie does a really excellent job of showing that violent consumerism, that excess and greed, the complete disregard of humanity. It highlights, for a rather extended period of time, how brutal and impactful that Black Friday riot was and how tragic it was. Speaking of violence, we've got to talk about it. This movie wasn't over the top, at least I didn't think it was over the top, but that's just my opinion. I will say though that the movie takes its time with these moments It builds the apprehension with these moments, but there are also moments that are quick and will probably catch you by surprise, or maybe they'll just make you wince. Touching on that gore for a second, it's there, and there's a lot of, for lack of a better way to say it, there's a lot of variety. I really like the story. Again, it's reminiscent of Scream. You have that group of young people and the killer that's picking them off one by one. While I like the story, I will say that a lot of the characters don't really get a whole lot of development aside from their character archetypes. However, the cast did what they could with what they had. Everyone played their roles really well. I don't think anyone did a glaringly bad job, but I just want to talk about Nell Verlaque as Jessica. She's our main girl, and she has a lot of screen time and a lot of opportunities to give range. I think she nailed it every chance she got, from the moments Jessica has with her friends to the moments where she was running for her life and scared. Nell really delivered. All right, so what did I think about the movie? Let's just put it all out there with my final thoughts. I really enjoyed this movie, and I really wish I could have seen it in a more crowded theater. When my honey and I went, there were people there, but definitely less than probably a third of the theater. I think a crowd would have been good for the humorous moments to the violent moments and that apprehension that I mentioned earlier. I feel like this movie kind of flew under the radar, but it did release on the same day as The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Me personally, I watched both movies, but I did watch this one on a Monday, so I can see how it might have been glossed over, but I wish more people watched this movie. This movie is so much more sharp and polished than I was expecting, and quite honestly, it's refreshing. It's funny, it has genuinely humorous moments, the acting is there, it's brutal, and the gruesome kills steal the movie. The movie deserves all the praise it's getting, and, well, we're getting close to the 2023 recap video, but is it too early to tell you guys that this might be one of my favorite horror movies of the year? Have you seen Thanksgiving yet? If you saw the movie, what did you think about it? I cannot say enough good things about this movie. If you haven't seen it already and you're a fan of anything that we've talked about, that slasher, horror, violence, again, there's a little bit of humor in there, then absolutely watch this one if you can. It's a little silly, but the movie really leans into that. It doesn't take itself too seriously, allowing you to really get immersed into the movie. The special effects are there and the practical effects are there too. I love trying to figure out who the killer is and honestly seeing if I got it right or not. The moments of apprehension are nasty and had me leaning back in my seat, stressing. If you're wondering if the movie is scary, it's not, but again, it's very graphic. There's a lot of blood, a lot of guts, and the ear thing, oh my gosh, you guys, the ear thing, I was wincing when it happened. I think I even gasped out loud. So just be aware. All right, movie fans, that brings us to the end of the episode. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you very, very much. Check out the description below for a link to the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please consider leaving the video a thumbs up if you liked the video. As always, thank you so much for hanging out with me and for catching today's episode. You can listen to new episodes every Friday. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, follow on Instagram, all the things so you don't miss out on the next movie we're going to be talking about. If you want to know my thoughts on Napoleon, then you can check that episode out. I'll put a tab in the top corner on the YouTube video, and if you're listening on the podcast, you can check that episode out there too. Next up is going to be The Boy and the Heron. If you've been keeping up with me for the last few weeks, then you know that my honey and I agreed to watch this movie in the English dub for that cast. I'm really looking forward to watching that one in IMAX. I just got tickets for this one recently for the next day. We're gonna go watch Godzilla -1. I haven't had any chances to talk about Godzilla with you guys, but I am a fan and I'm really, really excited about this movie. After that, there will be no more episodes posted on YouTube for the rest of the year. All of the following episodes after that until the end of the year will be podcast exclusives that you can listen to on Spotify. For the podcast exclusive episodes, we're finally going to talk about Totally Killer. We're going to talk about Rebel Moon. I am so excited for that movie, you guys. And then I have at least one more movie that I'm going to watch with my family during the holidays that I want to talk to you guys about. So I hope you'll join me on YouTube and the podcast, on Spotify and online at Spotify for Podcasters, especially for those exclusive episodes. I would love to hear from you guys, so please let me know your thoughts on today's episode or just your thoughts on the movie that we talked about today in the comment section on YouTube or on Spotify. I've got the Q&A, I've got polls, so check it out. I want to know what you think, so let me know wherever you are listening or on Instagram at a.rocket.review, and I'll talk to you guys next week. But until the next episode, spread positivity, be safe, take care of yourself, happy holidays, and remember, no leftovers. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.